on, baby, come on, make it go. And it should be ticking along now. Good news, good news. Now is the sound coming through? I hope it is. Come on, Livestream. Come on, baby, you can do it, you can do it. Still nothing happening through. Where is it? Where's my live stream? It should be producing something. It says that I am live streaming, but I don't see anything changing. Why is that? YouTube is broken, that's why. If YouTube's broken, no live stream. Looks like I wasted my time. Oh, there it is. Finally. Okay, so I can hear myself. That's good news. The sound is in fact working. We'll just check to see if my webcam is working as well, because that would be good as well. Apparently, it is working. All right. I think I got it all sorted. Okay, so now that everything is working properly, just going to say quickly that this is a live stream, and usually with my live streams, you will find them unlisted. If you haven't subscribed, hit the bell button and turned on notifications. If you are a patron of How to D&D, then I give you access. You can find that on the Patreon page to all the live streams, but they do go unlisted. So if you want to go back and watch it later on, you need to have that engaged, those three things: subscribed, bell button, notifications. I do an edited version of all of my live streams for those of you who want to sort of watch the shortened version. There is a Q&A at the end, and I'm probably going to save a discussion about how to use the different cantrips that I talk about in a bit more detail at the end of the live stream after my presentation. Right, I'm going to get rid of the earplugs because I don't need that. Just really quickly, for those of you who haven't been part of my live streams before, normally what I do is I present everything first using slides and images. It just makes it easier for me. And then at the end, we'll go back to the webcam and you'll be able to see my face, and we'll have a discussion and talk about cantrips, which I actually talked about quite a lot in the last live stream. How's it going, dancers? All right. So grab some food, some drink, those sorts of things, get comfortable, relax a little bit, and let's settle down and let's talk about cantrips. Can I just say, for those of you who are wondering, I really had a hard time selecting the best cantrips that I thought existed in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. It was very, very hard. It took me a long time. I was mulling things over for a long time. Okay, let's get on with it. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Now, today's topic is not necessarily prestidigitation, which of course is almost impossible to pronounce. It's the 6 best cantrips in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Why am I saying the 6 best cantrips? Because I tried to narrow it down to 5, and in the end, I just decided that I could not leave off number 6. There was a fight between 3 of them, and I couldn't decide which one to leave off. And in the end, I decided I'm not going to leave it off. I'm going to put it in the video. And now I'm just going to make it the best 6. Okay, so cantrips give you a minor spell effect. They can be utility, they can be damage. They're not as good as using your spell slots. So therefore, there's a lot of things you need to take into consideration because they're not quite as powerful, but you have an unlimited resource of them. You can use them as much as you like. So that means the key to cantrip selection is going to be, how often will I use it? Is there going to be regular use of this cantrip across all of the levels? And is there no substitute available? So I don't want there to be a substitute available in the form of a mundane item that I can purchase from a store or a basic core rule. And I also want the cantrip to be available to a wide range of classes. There's no point putting a best cantrip down if the only class that can use it is the warlock. So that's not really something I'm about. When we're talking about the best, we need to talk about the best across the board. So first off, the best cantrip is usually not a damage dealing spell. They're usually not the best ones. The only exception to this is if you are a warlock with Eldritch Blast, because the warlock is built around Eldritch Blast. That's the only exception to the rule as far as I'm concerned, because, and there are a number of reasons why I say this, and I know a few people will get really upset about the fact that I probably won't be talking about damage dealing cantrips in this video. If you are using a cantrip to do damage in combat, you're either playing at very low level, which doesn't usually continue for a really long time, it's a short phase in your character progression, or things have gone horribly wrong and you ran out of spell slots and the only thing you have left is a cantrip. Now I know people are going to say, well yes, but cantrips scale up as you level up. They're simply never as good as the spell slots that you have available. That's my only rationale behind it. That's why you won't see damage dealing cantrips on this list. And in fact, if you watch a lot of other videos, you'll find pretty much the same sort of thing being talked about. So here is my list of best cantrips in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. I would like to make it clear, this is just my opinion, you do not need to agree with it. Starting with number 1. Minor Illusion allows you to create an illusion of an object or create a sound. It is incredibly powerful in the right hands. I don't want to go through all the rigmarole about how the spell works because you can look at that in the player's handbook. That's not hard to do. It's available to 4 different classes, which is great because you want it to be available to as many classes as possible. But I've played whole games with Minor Illusion to great effect. So I personally think it's probably, yes, I would say possibly the best cantrip in the game of Dungeons & Dragons 5e. The only problem with Minor Illusion is it's very hard to use. It's actually difficult to use in the game because of the skill level and the level of creativity required to use it. So let me explain that a little bit more. You get an unlimited range of options with a spell like this. Yes, the effect is very minor. It's also heavily dependent on your Dungeon Master rulings. And it's also heavily dependent on you as a player being creative and clever. Now, if you want to see a really good guide on how to use Minor Illusion, I would go and check out Trent Monk's guide. He's got a really good guide. It's about 20 so minutes, but it explains everything in terms of outside of combat and inside of combat and how you can use this spell to great effect. And I really do recommend checking it out. This is a great spell for smart players, but really bad for primitive primates that understand only the big stick. If you are a person who views Dungeons & Dragons really only about combat, then you will struggle using the spell and you should not take it if you don't know how to use it or understand how to use it. So that's the only thing I would say about Minor Illusion. Next on the list, hugely popular, number 2 for me, and that is Mage Hand. It creates a spectral hand that can manipulate anything weighing less than 10 pounds about 30 feet away. Probably one of the most popular cantrips I can think of in the entire game. This empowers you to pull a lever at a distance, open or close a door, lift a lid, pick up an object, move a winch for a portcullis, activate a tripwire or a trap. Really, there's so many different things you can do with this that keep your character out of harm's way, and which is why it's such a popular cantrip to have in the game. And also great for picking up things you don't want to touch, like dog poo, if you have a dog or an animal that does their business during the game. So number 3 would definitely have to be Prestidigitation. Oh, got it out. It produces a minor magical trick for about an hour. I don't want to list all the different things it can do. Yes, you can snuff out a light, you can light something that's quite small, you can change colors, you can change flavors, and there's just so many different things, but they're all very, very small effects. But that's beside the point. because it's still an incredibly powerful cantrip. There's so much you can do with the spell that it's hard not to just spam this thing all day long and just watch your Dungeon Master and players look kind of perplexed about why you even bother selecting any other spell in the game. It's also great for messing with everybody to the point of complete annoyance. And I have seen prestidigitation used to pretty much do things that other players disliked and other Dungeon Masters disliked, so try not to be a complete dick with it. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Number 4 was really hard for me. I was beating myself over the head trying to figure out what it should be. And it was really hard for me to accept that this was number 4. Message. It creates a 120-foot link between two creatures that can whisper a short sentence. It's a two-way process, which is fantastic. Now, at first glance, you would think this isn't particularly useful. The only problem is that if you're only relying on the scout moving forward and then picking up whatever information you need and then coming back and then relaying that information in a whisper so they don't give away their position and reveal the party's location, that would normally be the process that we would follow in Dungeons and Dragons. But with message, you don't need to do that. The other thing is really barriers aren't too much of an issue for this spell, which is great. Another great thing about it is if you split the party, either intentionally or accidentally, message is really good for getting the party back together. There's actually so many different ways that message should be used. In fact, I feel like I should have used message in my own games far more than I have. It's really, you've got to toss it up between what availability you have in terms of your choices, right? We can't pick every single cantrip in the game. So possibly the easiest to use in all aspects of Dungeons and Dragons exploration, and it almost grants like short-term or a short form of telepathic communication. It's not exactly like that, but it certainly seems a lot like that when you're playing the game. So great for passing reliable messages without having to use carrier pigeons, paper darts, and the message in the bottle, which of course you never know if it's actually going to get there, right? Okay, number 5 has got to be guidance for me. Guidance adds a 1d4 to any ability check or skill check, including initiative rolls. So it's possible if you wanted to, and your Dungeon Master wasn't upset by you doing this, you could spam this thing constantly so that you could get, guess what, guidance on your initiative roll when you're coming up to a combat. It's kind of a bizarre thing to try and do, considering the nature of the spell. It does have a gesture and a verbal component, and you would have to do it pretty much every single minute. But I guess still doable if you really wanted to. Now, why wasn't guidance in a better position? Why have I left it further down the list? Because really this list is based on what I consider to be the most important cantrips. Why is it number 5? The thing with guidance, unfortunately, is it really is a fantastic spell. If it wasn't for this one fact, I would say it should be much higher up the list. But the only hassle is it's only available to 2 or 3 classes, and one of those classes is the Artificer. And the Artificer is not necessarily going to be available in your campaign because it's really tailored for Eberron. And a lot of Dungeon Masters won't allow that class in their game. So therefore, you really could be looking at only 2 classes that can pick up guidance. It's also got a very short duration of 1 minute. So there are some things that you might want to try and do that take longer than a minute, and your Dungeon Master might say, no, you can't be spamming this particular cantrip or spell because you need to be focusing on the task at hand, and so it won't be possible to use guidance in this situation. These sorts of things don't come up very often, but it can in your game, which is probably the one of the drawbacks, but not the greatest drawback. It's the lack of availability in the different classes that put it at number 5. So this is a great spell for players who can't do anything without divine intervention or roll very low on a d20, because getting an extra d4 might not sound like much, but we have bound accuracy in Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and so just a +1 can make all the difference, and I've seen that happen more than a few times in the game. Okay, so number 6 has got to be Mending for me. Mending repairs a break or a tear no larger than 1 foot. Now when you first read this you think, well, gosh, that's nice. How often is that going to come up? It's actually an impressive spell, but it does have some drawbacks. So there are really very few spells that can do anything like this. A spell that can fix something is rare, and there aren't a lot of them. But here's the problem. It's a very situational spell. You have to have the right situation. You might have a dungeon master who allows you to use Mending to fuse 2 objects together, but there's no guarantee that you have a dungeon master who will use that interpretation of the rule or rule it in that way, so it is very situational. But the spell can even fix a magic item. Any kind of magic item is right as long as the break or tear is not too big. It won't re-imbue it with magic, but it can fix a magic item of all things. This is why Mending is on the list of best cantrips, but right at the very end, simply because of the situation. You really need to have the right situation for it to work. So a great spell for accident-prone klutzes who break everything they touch. Okay, so there are some honourable mentions in terms of cantrips that I want to talk about as well. So honourable mention goes to Shape Water, which is very impressive, and Mould Earth. These are great if your Dungeon Master will let you use Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And Shape Water and Mould Earth would certainly be somewhere in the middle of this list if your Dungeon Master is allowing you to use those cantrips. When I read them and saw how they could be used, I thought, holy moly, Shape Water in particular is very, very impressive. There's too many different things you can do with it. Outside of combat, inside of combat, it's great. So does this mean that you should only take these cantrips, these 6 cantrips, as your selections? If you've got 4 you can pick up, should you take the first 4? Should you take no damage dealing cantrips? Is that the question? Yes, it is. Well, I would say no. No, you should not necessarily take these 6 cantrips, because what you take as a cantrip is dependent on your class and your style of play. And a lot of these cantrips require, when I say style of play, they require a level of experience, they require a level of creativity and understanding, and also just being smart enough to understand how they work. A lot of these cantrips aren't very easy to use unless you know how to use them in the right situation. Otherwise, all they're going to do is sort of provide sort of interesting things to do to entertain yourself and get a good giggle or a laugh out of, and nothing else, rather than help progress the story. So you should still take damage dealing cantrips, but these are, in my view, the absolute best, just because you can use them so often and quite a lot. Okay, so if you found this video helpful and useful, fantastic. I actually have a series of videos on different spells that you're welcome to go and check out. I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters that could certainly help you play the game, and you're welcome to go and check those out as well. If you want to help support the channel so I keep doing videos like this, you can do that. It's easy enough to do. All you got to do is check out my Patreon page. I also have an affiliate link to the book depository and Amazon down in the description. I have a merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos if you want to buy some merchandise. Otherwise, just watch my videos. I get paid for the AdSense revenue that they provide, which is always good too. Make sure to share, like and subscribe, hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Right. Okay. I can just hardly wait to see what the the comment section has to say about my selection of cantrips. But I stand by what I've said. I still feel like those are the best options in the game. But the after presentation video is not really about talking about the best cantrips. It's about how to use those cantrips. So I'm going to go through the chat, which is very short, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how to use these different cantrips in your game so they really sort of make it worthwhile. Which, yes, and later, and some stage will probably turn into a video, but who knows how long that will take, because you know how long it takes for it to do videos sometimes. It can be a very long time. My glass is actually working today. I can't believe it. So I already said hi to dancers. Hi, Catherine. Prestidigitation is no competition. The very best cantrip. Yeah, I know a lot of people would be saying that prestidigitation is better than minor illusion. I find that prestidigitation is got a lot of options, but it's the one spell I have never been able to use that allows you to do so much. I've played whole sessions through with just minor illusion, whereas I could not do that with prestidigitation because of the limitations that are in the spell. That's really my rationale, but you don't need to agree with me. Hi Fred, how's it going, Fred Hubber? A lazy DM first. Mage Hand is the main spell one of my players uses on a regular basis, like all the time in so many situations. Yes, Mage Hand is a very, very good spell. And it's a very easy spell to employ in the game. I can't think of a time when Mage Hand hasn't been like super useful, and it's easy to apply in the game. So absolutely, it is a very good spell. Papa Whiskey, how's it going? Fix my name. Oh, okay, here we go. Peterby. Peterbaya. Okay, I've probably still botched it. I do apologise. Cool Keg Computer, how's it going? It's been a while. I actually agree with your list, definitely. You know, it was really hard for me to put message as number 4 over guidance and mending, but I realised that it was so much easier to use and it could be employed more often, and it was available to such a wide variety of classes, which unfortunately for something like guidance you just don't get. And then not minor illusion, so guidance is only available to a few classes, right? And then mending, still a really good cantrip, but very situational. So yeah, that was my thinking behind that. But to be fair, it's not like these cantrips are available to every single class. So a list like the best 5 or 6 cantrips or 9 cantrips in the game is quite pointless because it really needs to be specified for a class. I've done the video, I've done it. Really the rationale behind it is I will follow up and talk about the cantrips in more detail in the future. Marcus La, do you think Thaumaturgy or Druidcraft are comparable to prestidigitation? I believe that Druidcraft certainly is, and you got to remember that I think I had this discussion last week with those people who were here for the worst cantrips video. I'll get my list out again very quickly, and just when you look at the druid doesn't have necessarily the options. You know, you can't just go and pick the ones that I've talked about for a druid, right? Druid really has Druidcraft, I would say Shillelagh, because you want to have at least 1 damage dealing cantrip, guidance and mending. Okay, so that was my thinking. And then in terms of if you've got access to Xanathar's Guide to Everything, then something like Shaped Water and Mold Earth, super useful. So you know, trading them in would be good too. Certainly you could even conceivably trade out something like Mending. So Druidcraft, yes, I absolutely do agree. Thaumaturgy, now we're talking about, I think that is the, who was it? It's still a really good spell, Here we go, the cleric. So here's your problem with the cleric. The cleric's list is very limited, and a lot of the spells I've just talked about, or cantrips I've talked about, are not available to them. So you can't go and take something like Minor Illusion because it's not there. Okay? So for a cleric, I would take something like Guidance and Thaumaturgy because it is able to do lots of different things. It's a very creative spell. If you're not a creative person, then don't take it. Okay? And then things like Sacred Flame is a really good spell. Mending. Resistance. I'm a bit iffy about resistance just because of the timing required with it. And if you're using Xanathar's Guide to Everything, then Toll the Dead is a very, very good cantrip for a cleric. But it's not like Thaumaturgy is available to a lot of different classes. The reason that Thaumaturgy did not go onto this list, and you might already know this, is because it's only available, I believe, to one class, which is the cleric. So I can't put that on there because it's too limited. It's the same with Eldritch Blast. Eldritch Blast is a very good damage dealing cantrip, but really only really good in the hands of a warlock. And who can take Eldritch Blast? Only the warlock. So there's your problem. And yes, you can take feats to pick it up, but really taking a feat to get cantrips is not a great idea. I've done it before. It didn't work out great for me. It was all right to begin with when I was starting at low level. As I went up in level, it really, everybody could just hands down plaster me. I just could not keep up. Cantrips don't keep up well with higher level spells. Okay, so, and the same with Druidcraft. When we talk about druids, really Druidcraft is the druid's form of Minor Illusion or Prestidigitation, because they can't take that. Alright, Diesel 24. Okay, you got a question. I haven't played D&D for a long time. Last time I played, I was 13. Okay, played 3.5. What should I bring to my first game? I'm assuming you mean your first game. I have a video actually on that topic. Keep it simple. Bring some dice if you've got dice. If you don't have a dice, bring your phone and put a dice roller on it, and hopefully your dungeon master will let you use it. Bring a pencil and a rubber. After that, really, I would bring along your character sheet. Don't expect your dungeon master to cough up the character sheet. Now, whether that's blank or already filled in, I don't know how they've arranged it. I don't know if you're having a session 0 or not. That would be my advice to you. Okay. Other than that, you don't have to take the player's handbook. If you've got it, then take it along. If you don't, then don't worry about it. You can always get a copy of the PDF for a tablet or a laptop, and you can even access it on your smartphone if you wanted to, and that's completely free. It doesn't cost you anything. That's really all you need. Most of the time, if you're playing with miniatures, Dungeon Masters will have a miniature for you, and if you don't have a miniature, just use one of your dice, or I don't know, a peanut shell, that'll do. So you don't need a lot. Yeah, Fred Hubbard's got it right. So Druidcraft is the Druid's version of Prestidigitation. It's flavoured a little bit different. It's not exactly the same. It's still a really good cantrip, but it's not on the list of the best because it's only available to the Druid and nobody else. Hopefully people get my point there. Cool Care Computer. I run a game for just my daughter and wife. They have no healer, so one of them chose Goodberry, since they have no healer. Yeah, Goodberry is a very good spell. Often overlooked by people because they would go with something like Cure Wounds over Goodberry, which is not a great idea. So yes, absolutely, it's a great spell. It has been a while. Yes, yeah, it has been a while, Cool Keg. I just finished university and I got my degree. Oh, good. And relaxing more and playing games, especially because of the quarantine in the USA. Okay, so the quarantine's not just in the USA. I can guarantee it. The quarantine's going on pretty much everywhere. Even here in New Zealand, we have still got a lockdown in place. Dancers, I play a warlock in a high-level one-shot game where we all, what's that? Geriatric adventurers go out for one last hurrah. It was fun. Oh, that's really cool. Okay, so last week I talked about the different cantrips for the classes, so very quickly I'm going to go over them. Now I want to talk about, after that, I'm literally going to take like a minute or two, and then we're going to talk about how to use these cantrips in your game. Okay, so that's what I think we need to sort of start talking about. So the sorcerer, in terms of the top cantrips for me, which I said last week, minor illusion, prestidigitation, mage hand, firebolt. You want those first. You've got to do some damage, and then message and mending, just in case you run out of spells, right? And then your options to fall back on are things like Toll the Bell, if you're using Xanathar's Guide to Everything, mold, earth, shape, mold, earth, and shape water, really good. Even chill touch is not a bad spell if you need something to fill up in damage. So that's that one. I've already covered the druid. I think I said druid, craft, shillelagh, guidance, mending, and then maybe mold, earth, shape water, poison spray, thorn whip. Yeah. Then we got the warlock, minor illusion, eldritch blast, or you could go eldritch blast, minor illusion. No, it doesn't really matter. Mage hand, prestidigitation. I'd go with those, and then you could follow them up maybe with something like Toll the Dead. Did I say Toll the Bell or Toll the Dead? I said Toll the Dead right now. Okay, chill touch, not bad either. Wizard cantrips. You get 5 eventually, so I'd go with minor illusion, mage hand, firebolt. Then prestidigitation and message. Sort of in that kind of order. That's for me anyway. And then if you've got access to Xanathar's Guide, then go with your mold, earth, your shape water, or possibly chill touch or mending, depending on the way you play the game and how much you think it's going to come up. I think I've covered all of those. And then who else do I need to talk about very quickly? Bard. Poor Bard. I feel bad for the Bard. Why is it that the Bard always gets the stick with everything? And in cantrips it gets shafted big time. So first off, I'd go with minor illusion, vicious mockery. Not a great damage dealing cantrip, but they don't have anything else really. And you could say, yes, what about Xanathar's Guide to Everything, use Thunderclap? Yeah, it's too close. You're getting way too close for a Bard. Mage hand, prestidigitation. Other spells you might want to pick up, possibly message, mending. But yeah, my first 4 would definitely be minor illusion, vicious mockery, mage hand, prestidigitation. I think I already covered the cleric, which was guidance, thaumaturgy, sacred flame, and then mending, resistance, and you may be able to swap out one of those for Toll the Dead if you wanted to. Okay, so that's that bit. I've finished with this. Let's talk about how to use these cantrips in a way that will actually benefit you in some way, because that's far more interesting in my view. And I'm going to go with the most commonly used cantrip there is. Let's talk about Mage Hand. And one of the things I love about Mage Hand, where is my pen gone? I had a pen a second ago. The great thing about Mage Hand is there are so many little things you can do and little tricks you can try and pull off with Mage Hand. And I'm going to write these down as I go because it'll help me sort of remind me of what I need to do later on. Oh, what's that, Diesel? My class is Ranger level. Race is Wood Elf and background Outlander. Okay, cool. Travis, Fred, thanks for your videos. You're the reason I am running my first campaign. Just wanted to say thanks again. Hey man, that's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that. Okay, let's talk about Mage Hand and how you can use that. One of the things you might have already guessed from the video that I talked about, things like pulling a lever. Now obviously you're pulling a lever that you can't reach, or you're pulling a lever that you don't want to touch. That's one of the really great benefits of Mage Hand, is you can get away with not having to deal with that. And there's always a chance that a dungeon master will put a button or a lever or something that needs to be depressed or activated with like a pit between you that you have to cross, or there's some sort of barrier that you can't get through. And really something like a spectral hand should be able to get through a small crack. It shouldn't be too much of an issue, right? So that's why I always say, yeah, pulling levers. That's nice and simple. Another really obvious one, of course, that we all know about, and that's open and close a door. Okay, so that is probably one of the most common things to do. You do a search, you make sure the door hasn't been trapped, it's not locked, you want to open it just in case your perception check wasn't good enough, or something bad will happen because it's on the other side, so you use your mage hand. Okay, lifting a lid. This is often, when we talk about lifting a lid, it's often a lid to a treasure chest, because of course treasure chests tend to have things that will go boom in them. That's traps, and they might not necessarily be able to be picked up by a perception check just like a door. So that's why we want to use your mage hand. Okay, so picking up an object. Often there are objects that you would like to sort of inspect, and it's safer to do that at a distance, so you pick it up. Some things when you pick up explode, some things might have a magical effect or a trap associated with it. One of the really old ideas behind traps was you have a coin, and attached to the coin is a small piece of invisible string, and when they lift the coin, and it's the only thing that's in the room, it activates the trap, and it's there for the greedy dungeon delver, basically. So being able to do that at a distance means you can sort of hopefully stay out of the way of those spikes or the closing walls or the falling ceilings or stuff like that. So pick up an object. Also, there are literally some things you don't really want to pick up because God knows where it's been. And I'm not just talking about dog poo. A winch. Now, a portcullis winch. Quite often when you're dealing with a castle, there is a portcullis, which is like a series of bars in front. You can't get past it without activating the winch, and the winch is on the other side of the portcullis. You can't squeeze between the bars, and so as a result, what do? Well, there's always that, okay, we're going to get a grappling hook and tie a rope, usually a silk rope, to it because it's lighter, and we're going to try to throw it through the gap and hook the winch, activate the lock so we unlock it, and then do it again and hook the winch so we can pull it together and open the portcullis enough to get through. But here's your problem. Sometimes throwing it through a gap is too hard, and it would actually be easier to take that grappling hook that's got the silk rope tied to it. It's going to all weigh less than, I think it's about 9 pounds. You can lift that up with your mage hand through the gap, hook it onto the lock for the winch, so you can yank on it and unlock it, and then of course you use your mage hand again, hook it onto the winch again, and then you can pull on it to open the portcullis up. One of the most useful ways of applying that is definitely with the moving a winch idea. Now you can of course try to directly move a winch or unlock it, but some dungeon masters you might find say, okay, 10 pounds of force is not enough to move the lock on a winch, or the winch crank itself requires more than 10 pounds of force to actually shift it, so you can't get the portcullis up. So that's why I say to move a winch. But more importantly, and you can do this with a lot of different things. So if you're having trouble trying to activate a lever at a distance, then you use the same concept of your grappling hook and your rope, and then you hook it onto the lever with your mage hand, and then you can pull on it to get it open. Of course, your distance is your biggest problem. 30 feet is not a long distance, so there are some situations it wouldn't be particularly useful for. What do you got here? The winch would usually need more strength than a mage hand can supply, but the mage hand can tie a rope onto the lever. That's right. There's another way of doing it, is to tie it on. If you have a dungeon master who says that the manipulation and tying of the rope onto the winch or the lock for the winch is too hard, then you use the grappling hook idea. Okay, so that's the grappling hook and rope. Hook and rope on winch and levers. Okay, alright, so next one. Activating a tripwire. Now if you spot a tripwire and you want to activate it, sometimes just using a 10-foot pole is good enough, but you may feel that that's not far enough away, or trying to hit the tripwire with something is maybe just a bit too difficult. But you use mage hand to activate it at a nice safe distance, and then let the trap activate without you getting killed or injured. So that's why I say activating a tripwire. And then other traps, some traps might be simply like a pressure plate you press down, or maybe it's activated by movement through a space. Like in Indiana Jones, there was a trap that was activated by breaking the light, and you might have a trap like that. So what you do is, if your Dungeon Master says no, passing their spectral hand through the light doesn't do anything, you might want to pick up like a small stone and move that stone through the light, and then of course that light sensitive trigger is activated by you holding that stone with your mage hand. So activate a tripwire, we've got that. Another thing that you might find really useful is if you need to create like a distraction and you've got mage hand up and running, you pick up like a stone, you move the hand a good distance from you, and then you throw it further away so that the guards are then alerted or pick up the sound of some activity right away from where they currently are. They go to investigate, and then you can sneak past them. So you're creating a distraction by throwing a pebble with your mage hand. So throw pebble, pebble with mage hand. Okay. All right, so that's that one. Trap and tripwire, I've already got tripwire. Now, those of you who have applied mage hand in other ways, you're welcome in the chat to share them with me. I'm just spitting out the things that I remember using. And like I said, I will probably make a video that talks about how to use mage hand. If you're wanting to sort of creep somebody out so that you've got somebody who's got their back to you, you could create a mage hand and have that mage hand touch them on the shoulder. Now you can apply the weight, they don't know anything. For all they know, they've just been touched by a ghost. If you stay out of sight, to a certain degree, you kind of got to be able to view what's going on, but if you can keep yourself in some cover so you're hard to see, then there's a good way of scaring them, intimidating them. So yes, I would suggest that as an option. So just touching a guard to scare them. Now, what did you have here, Fred? Tug someone's cape as a distraction. Yes, absolutely. If they have a travelling cloak or cape, then yes, tug on that. I'll just add that there. So tug. Why am I spelling that wrong? Because I'm thinking too quickly or I'm writing too quickly. Cape is a distraction. Yeah. Distractions are always great with mage hand. It's probably one of the most common things that people do. What's that, dancers? Players give someone hemp thread to mage hand, uses it to tie a creature's legs together. Yeah, I mean, yep, absolutely. If you want to do that from a distance, if they're sleeping and you don't want to get up too close and reveal yourself or be too obvious about it. So absolutely, I think that's, it doesn't necessarily have to be hemp thread. It could simply just be some sort of thread. The rogue mage hand is incredible. Now, I think you're talking about the arcane trickster. Now, if I remember right, the arcane trickster, which I don't really talk about with regard to mage hand because all bets are off when you talk about the arcane trickster, I think it says somewhere about being able to use thieves' tools with mage hand, which is really useful if you are an arcane trickster, but not if you're not. If you're a different class. So I didn't really want to talk about that too much, but I get what you're saying there. Absolutely. So let's say tie legs together with cord or string. Yep. Okay, so I think we have covered pretty much all of the different aspects of something like mage hand. So what we want to do is we want to start talking about the big one, the one that people struggle with the most, and that has definitely got to be minor illusion. I still recommend that people go and check out Trent Monk at some point, but we will talk about minor illusion because it is incredibly useful but really hard to use, to be fair. Okay, so I'll put down here rogue, arcane, trickster, And if you're not familiar with the Arcane Trickster, just check it out. Okay, so I need a drink of water before I lose my voice. I don't really feel like I need to talk too much about how to use something like Mending or Guidance. Message is relatively simple to use. Something like prestidigitation, there are lots of different ways you can apply it, but it's very situational, so it really comes down to how you apply it in that situation. But the big ones are definitely Mage Hand, because people use it a lot, and then Minor Illusion. So let's talk about Minor Illusion and what you can do with Minor Illusion. Okay, so Minor Illusion. So one of the common things that people will come up with, and they'll say, okay, I want to create the image of a creature, but you can't, because the spell stipulates that it has to be an object. So one of the ways of getting around that particular problem is to create, and really dependent on your dungeon master and how they feel about that, but you could create a wax replica of a creature that takes up that 5-foot cube. Okay, so that's one way of dealing with that problem. Or even a statue. So you can create the image of a statue. Now, when you think about statues, what sort of statues would you want to create? Something that you can use against them. Now, it might be a statue to scare them. So you could make something that would suggest that there's been like a Medusa or a basilisk in the area. So it might be somebody who looks like they've been frozen in place horribly. Okay, so a victim of Medusa or the basilisk. It requires your enemy to understand what the heck those things would be, though, so just bear that in mind. You can even, when you're doing the formation of that statue, have a bite taken out of it. So when you create it, obviously interacting with it will kind of void the illusion, because it's not very hard to sort of figure out what's going on at that point. But that's certainly one way of dealing with that. So statues, create a wax duplicate. Now you could do that of a person or a creature. And if you're wanting to go for a creature, well, there are lots of different creatures that will scare people. Okay, it's up to you. There's really no limit to what you can do with that. You can also create cover in combat, which is really good for somebody like a rogue or somebody who needs to be stealthy and have to hide behind something, or you don't want to get hit. So, like I said, really heavily dependent on a dungeon master and your creativity. Cover like barrels, so barrels and crates, maybe a tree or a bush. You could even create a door where there is no door. So if you've got a doorway with no door, put a door there, then suddenly that confuses people, right? But they can't see you unless they interact with the door, which is great. And really, for you to be able to do anything on the other side of that illusion, all you have to do with an interaction is touch it to figure it out what's going on. Okay, so let's have a look at the chat, because I see people are putting out some feelers with regard to Minor Illusion. Keep it flying, guys. I would suggest if you have any ideas, share them with people so they can use them as well. All right, so okay, so do you have any tips on what spells I should put down for a ranger? Hunter's Mark, really obvious. Entangle. There's a lot of different ranger spells that are pretty good. I mean, let's have a quick look. Can't be that. The problem is that your ranger is. I know a lot of people think the ranger is not a very good class. It's actually really good in the right environment. With regard to spell casting, it's not so fantastic, unfortunately. But then it's not really supposed to be a heavy spellcaster. Not in Dungeons & Dragons 5e anyway. Okay, so Cure Wounds, Detect Magic are all good. Fog Cloud is a good one. Good berry, yes. Hunter's mark, obviously. Speak with animals, hugely useful. I'm surprised just how often that comes up. Level 2. Dark vision. Do not touch fine traps. Leave that alone. Lesser restoration. Locate object. Surprisingly, I've seen that used to solve too many things. Pass without a trace. A really obvious one. Silence and spike growth. They're good too. Level 3. Good spells to pick up are conjure animals. What else? Light, daylight that is, not the light cantrip. Plant growth, protection from energy is pretty good. Speak with, water breathing, sorry. Water walking, and it really is situational, so it needs to be the right type of campaign to be useful to you. Conjure woodland beings. God almighty, that thing is a appalling spell, but yes, it's a good one to take. Locate creatures, really, really useful, like locate object. Grasping vines, not bad. I mean, they do have some decent. I mean, you think about the ranger spells. Most of their spells are pretty good for what they are trying to do. So it's not, you don't have a lot of duds there. The only dud is, I would say, fine traps. I'd leave that one alone. Okay, so let's get back to what we were talking about, which was minor illusion, how to use minor illusion, because that's what people are here for, right? These are supposedly the best cantrips, so why? Give us a reason, Fred. Give us a reason. Okay, I got distracted. Sorry about that. Okay, so Fred's got here. Players often want minor illusion to do more than the spell can do. Exactly. It's very, very true. There are some pretty significant limitations on it. So you have to think sort of around how you're going to do that. Dancers has got a very good point. Now, I think you can create an illusion in terms of your cover of a wall. So there's a lot of different things. What sort of things do you normally find in a dungeon? Doors, walls, crates, barrels. If you're outside, something like a bush, a tree, they're all useful because you can use them to sort of hide behind. The thing I would not do is try to get in and out of a barrel or a crate, because you're kind of breaking the illusion that you have created. Try to stay behind it. Otherwise, somebody's going to figure out that something's up. The other problem with minor illusion is that if you create the illusion during combat rather than before combat, then they might think there's something up. You know, is it an illusion or is it real? They still can't see you, but they might decide to come and interact with your object or illusion that you've created, and therefore void its effect. So, yeah. How's it going, Elliot? Hi, how's it going, mate? Right, Dances has got here, illusions of gold or treasure can be very useful. Yeah, now, that's a good point. I'm going to put that one down. So, treasure's good, and gold. Now, why would you do that? Because you want them to move to that location. Okay? So it's a distraction. So these are lots of the, and you know, honestly, the visible side is great, but you also got sound as well. It's all right, Travis, you can be off topic. Okay, so Marcus has got here something to say. What do we got here? Using minor illusion to create a picture of someone important that you have seen before, maybe bandits that got away. Yep. Look, you could literally, if you wanted to scare somebody, put an illusion of a portrait of Strahd in a house. You can't make the eyes move or do anything else, but that's something you could do. You could even put the illusion over the top of yourself. I've done that. The only problem with creating an illusion where you are currently residing is you need to take up a small enough space for that to work, and you don't want to move. If you shift and you pass through the illusion, you're kind of breaking the concept behind that. But I do agree. A portrait of somebody, 5. So portrait portrait of feared enemy on a wall. Pique their attention, yet another distraction, even possible to sort of scare them off a little bit. Okay, you can put the illusion over you, over your position. That's much more difficult to get away with because your dungeon master is really going to be looking for holes in your theory in terms of how to make that work. You know, creating a box around you so you can hide inside it is all very well, but your dungeon master, as soon as you pass or move too much, and if you start firing arrows and so forth, that kind of sort of breaks the illusion to a large extent. So over your position, and you can use any of the things I've already talked about: statues, wax duplicates, cover, you know, all that sort of stuff. Okay, so we keep working our way down. I haven't forgotten you, Travis. I have seen you, but I am trying to work through everybody else's comments as we go, because frankly, there's no manual out there that says this is how to use these spells. You kind of wind up having to learn how to do it through experience and just pot luck. All right, so Travis, what else we've got here? Sorry, I know it's off topic, but when can we expect one more Ice Peak DM guide? Okay, so Travis, it's a good point. The reality is, Travis, I've actually been writing a lot of material for the Dragon of Ice Peak. The reason I haven't been putting them up or doing video content on them is because I'm running the adventure right now, and some of my players are watching those videos. So you can see my problem. So for me to put up a video on those topics would be rather foolish right now. So, and because that I won't necessarily have come across all of the little secrets for that location, I have been reluctant to do very much with it. Will you see a lot more? Yes. When can I say it will happen? I can't say it will happen very, very shortly. I think my group is currently, they've done the first 3 main quests. They're working their way through the next 3 side quests, and I think they're on maybe, is it the 3rd one? I think it's the 3rd one. They've done the loggers camp. They're dealing with Exholm right now. They've done Butterskull Ranch. So yeah, Exholm, once they get through that, we'll work through the other ones. Dragon Burrow, which should be coming up fairly shortly, and then of course the other ones after that. Once that's all sort of tidied up, then I can start pushing those video topics out. Travis, if there's a particular topic you want me to talk about, you kind of have to sort of throw it out there, and now is the time, Travis. If you want to ask me, can I do a video on a particular topic, I can tell you now if I can do it or not. If it's something that won't reveal spoilers, then I'm all for it. I know that doesn't help you if you're trying to do that right now. My only advice to you, if you're trying to get advice on how to run Dragon of Ice Peak, is to go and check out Bob World Builder. Now, Bob World Builder hasn't been dungeon mastering that long, and so his perspective is going to be from that of a newer dungeon master, I would say, rather than somebody who's been around a while, because my play experience and my players' play experience is very different to what he's gone through. And it tends to be the case. Sly Flourish also did some articles, and I believe also some videos on the Dragon of Ice Peak. Sly Flourish is a very experienced dungeon master. I highly recommend his content. Doesn't mean I always agree with it, but it's still very good. But Bob World Builder's YouTube channel is dealing with a lot of different aspects. Can I say that everything that he puts in his stuff, personally, I think is a great idea, or you should do? No. But he's coming from a different perspective. You know, I've been playing for a lot longer, so it works a little bit differently for him compared to me. That's where you want to go for now, okay? But if there's something that you feel you need to hear from me, Travis, put it down in the comments, tell me what you want exactly, and I'll see if I can make it. I'll certainly try to put it in the schedule sooner rather than later. Marcus, what do you got here? We used it to show some guards what evil cultists Holden Town looked like. Ah, yes, that's right. That's Marcus, thank you for that. Yes, you can use it to so create a portrait of someone you're looking for. You are looking for. So this obviously means you need to have seen them before, and it circumvents the problem if you don't have a character who is very good at drawing. So you use minor illusion, and it certainly is time saving, so you don't have to worry about dealing with that. Yes, Marcus. Okay, let's say it now because I think Dances has made his point. Marcus gets 5 stars out of 5 stars for being really, really clever. Really simple idea, but still really good. Okay, so 8. I will mark down Mr. Xandar hiding in an illusionary box. I will put it down. I still feel like that's falling undercover, so I might put it a box here as well. Box crates, kind of the same sort of thing. I have one player who does that recently in my current campaign. He's pretty bright fellow. He's done a whole bunch of research, and I know where he was looking at the time, and he's aware that I've been trying to pull together ideas around minor illusion for a while now. So he knew that he was in an environment where he could try lots of different things and see how they worked out. Again, it's a very situational, heavily dependent on Dungeon Master spell as well. Hide in illusionary box. Alright, so let's stay with minor illusion. I feel like minor illusion is by far the hardest. We should talk about a lot. Yes, there we go. John's just about made my point already. But we can't. Sounds are something we need to talk about. Dances. I have a player who insisted on playing a deaf character who uses minor illusion to tell a picture story when they need to communicate sort of visual sign language. Yeah, I like that. Alright. Actually, it's a smart way of communicating a lot of information without having to say a lot. You think about it. How much can you communicate with a picture compared to words? You can actually communicate quite a lot with an image. So an image of story, and we'll put that in as like a sign language. I like that. Now, getting back to sounds, creating sounds. Now, there's a limit to how loud it can be, but the sound to scare people, the sound of a lion or a dragon or some other wild beast to scare somebody off, they don't have to see it. They just need to hear it. They'll never be able to figure out where it exactly is, because if there's plenty of cover around, you can circumvent that problem, right? So sound of wild animal or monster, and you can make, as long as you know what the sound is, you can make all sorts of different sounds. So what sort of sounds? So a lion would be good. Right, suddenly I can't spell lion. Yeah, I'm still having trouble with lion. Okay, alright. A dragon. What else can you use? I would go with a snake. A snake's a good, absolutely. Go with the rattler, and that'll certainly make things interesting. Dragon's burrow. Okay, I got it. They aren't there yet in my group, so I will be leaving that for a little bit longer, but as soon as I can, I will try to get that one out. So we'll come back to sounds of wild animals or monsters to scare people or scare enemies. And I've run out of water. No, my voice. And I'm also over time, which I knew would kind of happen because this sort of thing happens, doesn't it? Where are we? John. Yeah, here we go. So John has said the sound of a wounded animal to draw away a beast or creature. So it's a distraction. So sounds are always good for distractions, right? So you can, so we'll go with 11, sound to create distraction. And how can we do that? It could be a falling rock. It might be, as he's pointed out, a wounded animal. How else can you distract a creature with a sound? See, there's the thing. This is why I say the minor illusion is so good, because there's so many different things you can do. The only reason that prestidigitation doesn't get this is because the illusions you can create and the things you can create are so small that it's not quite as useful in my opinion. So falling rocks, wounded animals, we'll come back to that in a second. So scaring and distracting for your sounds. Mr. Xander, pull Google Eyes on your party's bard, then try to make some action rolls. Dear, you're funny. Okay, what do you got here, Diesel? I don't know if I'm allowed to do this or not, but what I do is I took my player's handbook and I opened it up and wrote down all the spells for Ranger, so I don't have to go into the book and look it up. There's nothing wrong with doing that, Diesel. In fact, I think you'll find your Dungeon Master will be quite happy with you doing that. Elliot, thank you for all that you do. Look forward. Thank you for showing up, Elliot. Some folks released some live maps for Lost Mine of Phandelver. Cragmore Castle looks good if you are into live maps. Yeah, so they did release, I did a video on the fact that they released for free the Lost Mine of Phandelver content. Right now, I don't think that's available. I think it's just the Dragon of Icespire Peak adventure that you can get off D&D Beyond and Fantasy Grounds, so you can get the maps there. Yeah, I don't know. Look, people keep asking me, will I do any more videos on the Lost Mine of Phandelver? And the reality is, I always say no, I've done everything. But I lie a little bit, okay? Just a little bit, because as time goes by and people ask me questions, they start asking questions that make me start to think, oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's actually a question that probably a lot of people will ask. And then if people keep asking me the same question, then I tend to sort of look at it and think, maybe I should do a video. And one of the videos that I will probably do on the Lost Mine of Phandelver is I will do a video on the Druid at some point. I just don't think I'll be doing it anytime soon. I will probably do a Lost Mine of Phandelver home base guide, because it is specific for that adventure, rather than the more generic videos that I've done on stronghold and home base ideas and how to build your own home base for your players. So I will do that. I'll probably at some point, if people ask me enough questions, do one on magic items in the Lost Mine of Phandelver, because I know a lot of people keep asking me, are the magic items in the Lost Mine of Phandelver overpowered for the adventure? So I guess that is quite possibly, those two topics are likely to show up at some point, and the Druid at some point as well. And I have considered doing some of the location videos, but not in the format that I've done in the past, because they scare the bejesus out of me to sit down and try to roll through and explain how to do the combat and run a combat for a particular location, which I've done before. And doing it live, frankly, is insanity. I think I'm the only insane YouTuber who's tried to do that nonsense before. And I know people like it, but it's really difficult. And I get hammered when I make a mistake, which of course will happen because it's a live stream. Okay, right, so we're going to work our way through here. Yes, Marcus is brilliant. Okay, so what's this? Kendon, yeah, I love the videos going over common items. Okay, so there is more of those coming. I had a writer's block. I had like a memory block and a writer's block. I just could not work with what I had. You're probably going to see a best 30 different mundane adventuring gear items for your game. I will probably do one on the simple torch because somebody said something in one of my videos, I think the worst 5 cantrips in Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and for some reason, I don't know why I got angry, but I did. But I have to thank them because it sort of released the flood wave of ideas, and suddenly I could recount all the reasons why a torch was really, really useful in the game. In fact, more useful to have a torch than a light spell, because I've had this problem happen in my own games where we've had only people with the light cantrip and we've only had people with no light cantrip and just torches. And I can tell you now, I'm always going to go with, I just want a standard torch because you can burn stuff with it. So yes, those videos will keep coming. Oh, I lost my place. I'm going to scroll down here. I'm obviously not keeping up. Oh no, I think I'm almost to the bottom there. Minor illusion, solid ground over. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Fred. I knew he would keep me on the rails. Keep me going. That is, not on the rails. Fred is right. So if you have a pit or a hole, you create solid ground over that pit or hole so that your enemies fall into it. So that was 11. That's 12. So solid ground over pit or hole. Now you know what the benefit of that is. They fall in the hole, right? I've got a player that uses it to add a drum beat to his bard's performance. So he's actually trying to augment his performance check. So that's actually quite clever. So I'm going to put that down. So augment, did I get it right? Augment performance check for bard. Absolutely. So drum beat, but you could do anything. It doesn't have to be a drum beat, right? The sound just can repeat and loop if you want it to. So a drum beat's one, but it can be a very simple tune that's just played over and over again. So a flute sound or a guitar sound. Now, it can't be too complex, so don't get too carried away with this. What else is there? A horn blow. So there's another one in terms of a distraction, in terms of the sounds you can create. A horn blowing. We'll put that down under distractions. Thank you very much. I knew you guys would help me out with this, and you've given me far more. I know I think I wrote down about 6 or 7 ideas off the top of my head, but yeah, you've given me far more than I had before, I'll tell you that now. But I like that. That's good. That's cool. Line. I don't know what line is. Yeah, I have no idea. What's that, Travis? Or maybe a lion and an extra I Spy a Peak content that that available on D&D Beyond. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. I know what you're talking about. Okay. Yeah. So the extra content that's available on D&D Beyond, covering that. That will probably come eventually. I just don't know when. I'm not even sure if I'm going to use that content myself, because I'm probably going to go from the Dragon of Ice by a Peak into Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I'm trying to set it up that way. So there's been a lot of foreshadowing going on in my campaign. Dancers, thanks for this video. It was a wealth of knowledge. You rock, Fred. Hey man, not just me, a wealth of knowledge from a lot of different people. What do you got here, F Hubber? Critical Role is doing a rerun. Sometimes is no biggie. Yeah, I don't know. Why would they be doing a rerun? I suppose if they do a rerun of their stuff, they get people viewing their content, but that's kind of weird. I don't understand why they would need to do that, but obviously they feel they do need to do that. Anyway, Alex, is your list over, or am I too late? I did actually look. Alex, you can re-watch the video. You are a bit on the late side in terms of the best cantrips in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. But, you know, you can re-watch it later on. I did already talk about them. I did talk about pretty much all the best cantrips for all the different classes as well. That's after the presentation during the Q&A. So there's a lot of time to sort of speed. I'm not going to be able to put timestamps in. It's just not going to happen. But I will eventually do a best cantrips list video for each of the different classes as separate video content at some point. Yeah, I am discussing Minor Illusion because I feel like Minor Illusion is probably the one spell that needs a good solid guide on, because people get stuck so often when it comes to using it. F Hubber, 1 hour, 9 minutes into the stream. The list is quite a while back. Exactly, yes. So I think in the first 2 or 3 minutes, if you go back into the live stream, I talk about the best cantrips, okay? What else? Make a salt shaker look like a healing potion to prank the barbarian. Ooh. So, yeah, but the only thing is that it's an illusion. So as soon as they grab it, their hand will pass through it, and they'll realize that it's an illusion. Yeah, so I don't know how useful that is. You might get them excited to start off with. Here we go. We'll put it down as get NPCs and PCs excited. How do you do that? Well, Treasure will do that. Ale will do that. Wine. What else can we do this with? Well, we'll think about that. I'll come back to that. Anyway. Yeah, make sure you have your notifications turned on. Marcus is absolutely right. Hi Craig, how you doing? Hi from Canada, love your channel. I just got into D&D and your videos on Lost Mine of Phandelver. I'm surprised, and not surprised. I think most people find my channel nowadays because of Lost Mine of Phandelver, which is great. It's worked well, that series of videos, and it continues to be useful, which is good. So what else we've got here? Chris, hi Chris. I sometimes use it to create an image of what I'm seeing with my scouting familiar, so another player can make nature or arcana rolls. So Chris makes a good point. Now I did a video on making monster knowledge checks, and the problem when you retell from a description of what somebody else has seen or what you've seen to somebody else, the information might get lost. But that actually, I would say, that actually makes really good sense. I really like that. So it's an aid. It's an aid to describing a monster or creature you have seen for a monster knowledge check. I like that. Well, see, this is why I say Minor Illusion is such a powerful cantrip. You can already see, I mean, there's no way one person could spit out all the really, really smart and clever things you can do with Minor Illusion, just because people have tried so many different things over time. So I really like that, Chris. That's very, very clever. Marcus, yes, I found you because I was about to run Lost Mine of Fandelver. It was fantastic. Thank you so much for the advice. You're welcome. I'm glad I was able to help. Okay, so now you can also use minor illusion to augment things like deception and intimidation and persuasion checks. One of the more difficult things when you're trying to use those skills is to have something that can back that up. So something like intimidation. I've had intimidate a creature or NPC. So how do you do that? So I've had players that made their eyes red, so red eyes, because that's really disconcerting. They've given themselves a scar, okay, facial scar. Here's the problem with a facial scar, is you can't move, okay? Same with the eyes going red, and other things like that, certainly when they're attached to you. Somebody had decided to create, what was it? I think it was a weapon and left it on the ground, or a plant to intimidate somebody, like a carnivorous plant. So lots of different things. So intimidation, what else? 17, deception. So deceive, or deception of creature or NPC. Sorry, I am trying to look at the chat while I'm doing this at the same time. What's that, Marcus? Even though I know this is about cantrips, minor illusion mixed with silent image is my favourite spell combination. Marcus, I would agree. You can make almost anything seem to come to life. Yes, absolutely. And you can use them in combination, which is why I think, and it's a cantrip, right? So it makes a lot of sense. So, and often when you combine spells that aren't both concentration, you can do a lot of different things as well. But absolutely. So combined with, you can also combine it with not silent image, but what is it? Is it major illusion? I think it's major illusion. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it is major illusion. There's another illusion spell, which you can also use in combination with it. Combination with silent image and major illusion. Illusions are problematic because they are illusions, and so forth. Seeing through them can happen sometimes, but still really cool. Right, I've run out of water and I'm losing my voice, and I know I should stop. But what's that, Chris? If I am hiding, I like to use it to make an enemy sound like they have insulted another enemy. Right. So there's another thing you can do, and I like the idea, Chris. It's actually very, very clever. I want to go back to your sounds for creating a distraction. So you can make a crashing noise. You can create the sound of a bell. And a bell might suggest to somebody that an alarm has gone off. So, and that has a lot of different benefits, not just distraction, but alerting other people to what's going on. So the sound of a bell, not just shouting it out. And then what else was there? Oh, I think that was it. I think we've got that there. Music noise. Oh, and clashing steel. That's right. Clashing steel. So clashing steel suggests that there is a fight. Yet another way of distracting. You got to be careful about how much complexity there is in the sound, though. Remember, it's only minor illusion. Chris, the Misty Visions evocation doesn't get enough love. Silent image with unlimited with an unlimited amount. Yeah, no, fair enough. I absolutely agree. You are right, Chris. I think the problem is that it's actually easier for people to visualize just doing damage rather than getting too complicated with what they do. And that's because they really, you have to sort of think of these things. I remember having to work quite hard when I was using minor illusion to be able to use it. Or I was always sitting there trying to figure out, okay, so how can I make this work? How is it going to be beneficial to me in some way? So I think that's good enough for today. I think that's a good place to stop. I really hope that everybody has got something out of it. I hope if you've been using Mage Hand and Minor Illusion that you've got a few more ideas about how you could use it in your game. Now it's just down to you going and trying it out and seeing if your Dungeon Master will let you get away with it. So yeah, give it a try. So wherever you are in the world, whether it's be the morning, the afternoon, the night, the early morning, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and everybody else. And thank you to all of my patrons, and thank you to everybody in the live stream who was so generous and offered so much of their experience and ideas, because it's been really useful for me, and I'm sure very useful for other people as well. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.